Hi, hello everybody. Welcome to today's panel discussion. I am Shweta. I work with Tunku Advisors as a senior BIM consultant, and I will be the moderator for today's discussion. So before we dive into our engaging discussion, allow me to introduce our speakers today. We are thrilled to have three amazing speakers, but unfortunately, one of them will not be able to make it to the call today. But let me introduce you, nevertheless, to the two wonderful speakers that we have today who will bring us some great insights from sustainability and construction technology perspectives. So we have Maria Volpe from Norway. Maria is a passionate BIM coordinator and the founder of Verde, a company dedicated to integrating sustainability into the construction industry through digitalization. Verde's BIM software helps design, operate, and document the sustainability of projects throughout their entire life cycle, considering all six of the EU's environmental objectives. Maria's expertise in sustainable design and construction practices, coupled with her entrepreneurial spirit, will offer valuable perspectives on how technology can drive sustainability in our built environment. Very happy to have you over, Maria. Welcome to the discussion, and we look forward to hear from you.
Thank you.
All right. So our next speaker is Hugh Seaton, hailing from Austin, Texas. Hugh is the CEO of The Link, a company that leverages artificial intelligence to enhance construction specifications with a focus on reducing risks, increasing productivity, and streamlining project delivery. Hugh's work is revolutionizing the construction industry. His innovative approach transforms text-based specifications into structured data, making them more accessible and useful for field teams. Hugh's extensive experience and insights will provide us with a deeper understanding of how AI is reshaping the construction landscape. We are very happy to have you with us today, Hugh. Welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So without holding back any further, I think it's time we dive deep into our discussion today. So I would love to start this conversation. I think my first question would be to you, Hugh. AI is rapidly transforming many industries in the context of construction. Can you share an application of AI that most people might not be aware of?
Yeah, I think that's a really big question, and I appreciate starting there. I would say a few things. One is there's kind of more than one flavor of AI, and deep learning has been around a while, and I think people maybe don't realize that it's in a lot of the different things that you're using already. Everything from reality capture to Alexa and Siri to some takeoff software. So it's the kind of deep learning's been around a while and is adding a ton of value to projects even as we speak. What I think is interesting about generative AI, which is really why we're talking today about this versus some other things, isn't one big win, although there's some interesting things that are happening, is how it's much more ground up as opposed to top down. So there are companies like mine that are developing specific products that are, I think, making big strides. But what's really interesting is, unlike deep learning, where you needed to have a big tech team to do anything with it, you needed lots of data and so on. You can go to ChatGPT right now, or whatever flavor of that. We've got one that's specific to specs. Ask it to do something, and it'll produce useful things for a non-technology person really quickly. So I think what's surprising is how it's starting to percolate and have an effect the more and more we use it. The other thing I would add is that almost everybody I know has an AI effort, whether it's the Procores of the world in the US, a company called Red Team we work with just hired a CTO who's got a master's in AI. It's now part of everything. So that to me is surprising. I think that there are specific little things popping up. I had a conversation with a company called Open Space, and they've got a direction they're going they call spatial AI, which is quite relevant to BIM, and it's quite relevant to sustainability because it's taking AI from what we now think of as very document and dialogue based into 3D intuition, like thinking about things with a 3D sensibility, which is not so easy and not so obvious. There's a long way for us to go to understand how to do that right. But I think it's super exciting that that sort of thing is again percolating. We're at a really exciting time. I've been in technology for 30 years. Nothing has ever been this fast. So I think it's like, watch this space if you can keep up with it.
Yeah, cannot imagine what could be next, Thank you. On that note, Maria, my question would be to you, since you are from a software development for construction background, integrating AI with BIM offers numerous possibilities, like how you mentioned just now. So what could be some major processes that we currently follow that could be impacted?
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I think that integrating AI with BIM can impact many of our current processes a lot. I think some processes may disappear, and then some new ones that previously would be too time consuming and require too much resources will now be possible when we start using AI more. However, I also think that there is a human aspect to this, because the decision makers in the industry, they also need to make the step and be willing to update the current processes and how that we works. Because in my opinion, I think we lag a little bit behind, even with the technologies that we already have available today. Um, because many of our current workflows, they're still very drawing and delivery oriented. Uh, but one of my favorite aspects with BIM is that it's very dynamic, and it's more than just the geometry and the information. It's a full digital process throughout the entire life cycle. So we need to first fully leverage BIM's potential and update our processes to include the full benefits of BIM as a process. And then I think AI will then just become fuel to that fire, making it more efficient. And it can help automate time-consuming tasks, improve data validation. There's a lot of use cases we can use AI for. But I also think it has great potential in analyzing the way that we work and see if we do what we believe we do. Also, and find weaknesses that we might not even be aware of when we use the AI on ourselves a little bit. Of course, it's important then to secure the GDPR first. But if we use AI to track how the users are also interfering with the software, we can also make better and smarter softwares in BIM and in the construction industry. And I think we really have a great possibility to take our softwares from something that feels a little bit Windows 2000 often, into something that might be able to compete with the gaming industry. Because it doesn't make sense for me that in a world where we have access to semantics, we have access to linked information, smart technologies. So to see that we work in an industry where very often we sit with case sensitive softwares and lists, and we're sending files back and forth to each other. It doesn't make sense to me when we have all of this amazing technology available. So I think we can really improve both the processes, the way we work, the software we have available, and with both BIM and AI. Yeah.
If I can just add something, I really liked what Maria was talking about, and one thing that really sticks out, there's a lot in there actually, is process. So over the course of the last 20 years or so, we've had a few things come through construction. One of them being cloud and mobile, and another one being BIM. And you can see that I don't know that people have taken a step back and thought about the processes that they do as much as they might. And I think BIM especially has taught us that we really benefit by doing that, by actually thinking about the business, not being in the business, that kind of difference you hear sometimes. And there's a real opportunity with AI to do that, to say, hey, how are we doing what we're doing, and where might this help, and how do we do that in a way that doesn't scare us, that we can think through risk. But I really like your emphasis on process, because again, I think this is another moment when we can stop and say, how are we doing these things, especially when you've got labor shortages and a number of other pressures that AI, I think, can help with, especially to your point, in combination with BIM.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking about processes, this next question is to you, Hugh. What are some of the most unexpected challenges that you've encountered while creating AI for construction specifications? And if you can share how you overcame those, it would be great.
Yeah, and this relates a little bit to the points we made before. The biggest, I don't want to say it was a surprise, except it sort of was, is the underlying variability of the documents that we're dealing with. And this is where generative AI can help a lot, in that classic software, even deep learning, struggles with how variable documents can be, whether how they're styled, the words that are used, where words are put. And that's just within one economy. Different countries are, forget about the language, just the way they choose to use something like a specification. So that for us, and we're really the US and Canada right now, it was surprising how variable things are. And we actually had to rebuild the product to use AI much more granularly than we had originally thought, where we are literally using it for every line, to be able to handle the fact that people put things where they shouldn't be, and they misspelling isn't such a big deal, but they put things where they shouldn't be. They put things that shouldn't be there. Anyway, you get what I mean. And that's just, documents. You can imagine what it's like with BIM and so on, where how you classify a thing, the complexity starts to grow. So that to us was a little bit of a surprise. I spent 3 years at the Construction Specifications Institute, so you would have thought I'd know. The problem with being at an association is that you're seeing the best. You're seeing the people that actually follow the rules. But out in the real world, people are busy and they're copying things and they're using old files for new files. So the general point I'm making is that we're learning how to apply these new technologies to handle that variability and bring it into a place where you're talking about data now, not just talking about documents that a human has to read. Humans still have to kind of catch some of the margin. There's edge cases and there's weirdness, and you don't necessarily want to pay to make software handle literally everything, as self-driving cars have taught us. But even so, being able to handle 90% takes just a different way of looking. So that for us was a big one. And I think we're going to find that across the board, is that the opportunity to take these PDFs and these massive amounts of historical data that's locked in a format that classic software can't handle. What we just went through, I think, is applicable for that sort of data as well, and a real opportunity for us to learn from history.
Yeah, that sounds a lot similar to the real situation at the ground, right? What we look at in terms of AI and integrations, by the time we deploy them on projects, there's a huge gap between how we can execute them to the granular level that you're talking about. Talking about processes, I'd like to step back a little to talk about a larger picture here, project management. Maria, AI-enhanced BIM can revolutionize project management. Which areas do you think will see a significant shift in the decision-making process based on the outputs from this integration? Sorry, one moment.
Okay, first I just want to make a little comment to the previous answer, because I thought it was so great, because on one side you have the technology and the AI, but on the other part you have the human aspect, and I work as a BIM coordinator as well in infrastructure projects, and I feel that the human aspect is so important in how we use the technologies to motivate, and it's a lot of change for many people. So to make the digital shift safe and work together on it to get the maximum out of the technologies, I think it's so important. Then to your question, I think it's at the very start of the project. That's where we can find the biggest effect relative to the cost. It's much cheaper to make changes earlier in a project compared to later on into the project. So I think with AI being great at analyzing huge amounts of data and finding patterns in a way that we humans cannot compete with AI on that. And I think that's so important to see, where does AI have strengths that we as humans cannot compete with, and where does we as human have strengths that AI does not have. So I think we have a great opportunity with applying AI and move some of the resources earlier onto the project and earlier into the processes. So then we can have a much more clear picture of how the project will evolve earlier on. Uh, and I also see like a potential in machine learning to learn from previous projects. I think a lot of construction companies have a lot of existing data that where I think they can find gold in their already existing data if they apply AI on what they already have. And I think it could be very valuable. However, I also have a concern when it comes to using AI in the construction industry from the project management perspective. Um, and I think it depends a lot on the decisions that are being made from leaders. But I think it would be good for many that, especially if you sell hours, that you take a look into your business model, because if you provide more value and more efficiency, but you keep on selling the hours, I'm a little bit worried that we will just like increase the demand on the people working in the project. So this amazing efficiency tool that we could liberate hours to innovation, quality, securing, sustainability, uh, just generally increasing the project quality. I am afraid that it will end up being used to just a heightened demand in producing from the people working into the project. So that's the thing I really hope that many leaders take serious and look into the business models they have as well, because I think the human well-being is also very important, at least to me. I think that technology should serve the people, and the outcome is not that the people should serve the technology. So it's a little bit fair I have there also, but I hope it will play out in a good way.
Okay. So on the note of talking about well-being, I also have a follow-up on that one for you. So how do you envision the role of sustainability when we talk about well-being here in the construction industry with the advancement of AI and BIM technologies? Are you looking any groundbreaking trends that you can talk about?
I'm sorry, it fell out a little bit. Can you please
Sorry.
repeat?
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you envision the role of sustainability evolving in the construction industry with the advancement of AI and BIM technologies?
Oh,
Any groundbreaking trends, any kind that you?
yeah, I mean, we see like an increasing demand of sustainability in projects, and clients are requesting it more and more, and it's also regulations in place that pushing for sustainability. I think it's very interesting that the digital shift is happening simultaneously with the digitalization of the construction industry, and I think that's also the only way that we can actually manage to do something that extends beyond some one individual's expertise and some passion projects. That we need to use technology in order to kind of like democratize sustainability in a way. Uh, because as we know, we are working in the 40% industry. So we have 40% of the emissions, 40% of the materials are being produced are for constructions, and around 40% of energy consumption is to operate our constructions. So I think it's very important that we make sustainability accessible to all of the stakeholders, not just those with specialized knowledge. Because I do think there is great potential also in taking the less sustainable projects and just bringing them up to even a neutral emission. But I see that many companies and professionals that could do great there, they're hesitant to take on those kind of projects because they make them come out less good. So when they're doing their sustainability reportings and their portfolios, I think it's very interesting to see what some amazing professionals are capable of doing and where we can reach. But we need to get the entire industry with us if we're going to manage to do something about these problems. And I think it's a bit of a challenge that it's also very expensive to consider sustainability at this point. It's something that you have to have the ambition and the resources, and that's where I hope and think that technology can play a really important part in making it possible to actually do something about this, to make it accessible to everyone and hopefully a bit cheaper and more efficient.
If I can build on that a little bit, one of the things that Maria has talked about a number of times is this idea of accessibility, and I think this is where AI can help a lot in that it allows to have command, for lack of a better word, over a lot more information flows and information itself. And one of the issues with sustainability is it is a frontier of certain types of innovation, whether it's concrete is the one I know the best, but where you're saying to yourself, great, there's some zero carbon concrete, but it doesn't do what I need. Oh, wait, somebody's innovated something down in Spain that does. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the gap between a larger general contractor, for example, or design firm who has, you know, a whole staff who can research these things versus a smaller shop doing a smaller project in Norway, for example, might be able to be bridged by AI that can do, whether it's web searches, consuming APIs, various ways of pulling in better data and giving people, without having to hire someone new or spend a lot of time or stay late trying to research this stuff, better information at the point when they need it. I think that's a general point about AI, is its ability to kind of help us kind of just have access to and confidence in a much wider range of knowledge and information than we would if it was just Google searches.
Yeah, actually, what you say makes me think about one of my favorite voices in AI is Gianluca Mauro. He lectures at the Harvard University, and he shared something that I thought was really interesting from a Harvard research paper. And he said that the least skilled professionals in the survey, they had a 43% increase in performance when they used AI compared to not, while the highest performers, they had 17% increase. But what I thought was the most interesting, it was that the least highest performers, they outperformed the highest performers when they had access to AI, but the highest performers did not have access to AI. So I think that's really interesting that it gives everybody the possibility to compete on a higher level. And I think that could be really beneficial for the entire industry.
That's wonderful. Hugh, do you now we've discussed the vast potential of AI in construction, right? So what is one area that you believe is still, let's say, underexplored or underestimated?
I'm going to actually play off what we just talked about. So the fact that almost any generative AI tool can write things for you on the fly, I think is going to allow us to do things related to training and education. So, you know, what we know from how people learn is that going away for an hour and listening to a lecture isn't useless, but it also is not the most efficient way to learn something. We don't really learn from listening, we learn from applying and reflecting on our experience. So the ability to have assistance and or just kind of AI interactions in the moment or right after you've done something, before and after, right around the time you've actually done a thing, I think could be revolutionary. And I think it isn't something the construction industry spends as much time thinking about as some other sectors might in terms of training. Obviously, people think about safety all the time, but in terms of process and how to do your job, it tends to be much more of an apprentice-based model where you work for a bunch of years and watch people and listen to them and maybe read the thing here and there. I think the opportunity to train people and broaden their ability and then have them think about it, like think about what you just did or think about what that was, whether it's with a question or some kind of a conversation. The fact that conversational agents are much more sophisticated and natural than they were means you could have a mentor with you all the time, saying what happened while you're driving home, what happened today, what did you find successful, what did you find not, I think that that's a real opportunity, especially if someone can find a way to do it that's fun, and actually a point from Maria made before about the gaming industry, somehow making it so that it's not tedious, because it would get tedious quickly. Like day 3 of a robot asking me how'd your day go might get a little bit boring. But I think there's ways to do that that are not quite so tedious. And I don't hear enough of that. And I think that we'll hear more of it, especially, again, everybody's got labor issues at all skill levels. And I think this is one of the ways that we can address that, is the people we do have, we can make more capable and more kind of resilient to new problems and new projects.
Right.
I
Yes, Maria.
really like what you're saying here, and I think it's a really great opportunity to make people more included and safe enough to maybe learn enough that they feel safe to participate as well. Because that was maybe my biggest surprise coming from university into the work staff. Was I thought that the level for both the digitalization and sustainability would be so high compared to fresh out of university. On the other, instead, it was the opposite, that we came out with rose-colored glasses and had some very ahead professors when it came to both BIM and sustainability. And I noticed that for many people who've been doing their job in maybe 20, 30 years, and all of these shifts happening at the same time, it's not so comfortable to have all of these changes. So if we could make AI also help the new people into the industry, but also those with more experience to do the transition, I think that would be amazing. Because again, I think that people's feelings, it has to be secured, and then we can see how far we can get with the technology. And I think if not, we risk to lose very good minds, because we're not good at making sure that they're emotionally safe when it's happening a lot of big changes at the same time.
That's wonderful. I have one quick common question before we end this session today. A little bit further from the field, will AI be used outside of the construction, industry to make the world a better place than it already is? Of course, the business efficiency will no doubt increase, but what does that mean in the bigger picture?
Do you want to go first, or?
I was going to offer for you, but sure. Please, go ahead.
Well, I think the thing I really like about AI is that it's very including, and it invites more people into the space to have their voice being heard. So I hope it helps us democratize a little bit more, that people who previously wouldn't have the same possibilities now can get those possibilities. And I think we need to have that kind of like challenge and have more perspectives into everything that we do. And then also, I think there's a lot of potential for AI that is just fun, that isn't all for productivity. I think if we can customize more, see our own patterns, I think there is great possibilities in that as well.
So I'll build on that. I think one of the points you made about non-work, I think that there's an opportunity for emotional partnership that can go either way. In that, on the one hand, you mentioned the word safety, and I really like that, because it's nice to be able to try a thing in a place where you've got room to fail a little bit and then feel comfortable. And AI, I think, will provide that in a bigger sense, that you can talk to a thing that won't judge you and so on. The flip side of that is the atomization of society. Like I think social media has taught us that things that bring gifts can sometimes also bring not such gifts. So I think that but the thing that I like to point out to everyone is you have agency in this. It isn't the weather that's coming at you and you have no choice. We all, whether it's as a company or as an individual, have more ability to affect how we work with these things than maybe we sometimes think we do. And I think with generative AI especially, and maybe AI more generally, I think we have more opportunity to to guide this than we might think we do. Obviously, some big decisions will be made by folks that have billion-dollar budgets or $100 billion budgets, but nevertheless, I think it's a little bit up to us to be able to say, this is how we want to use this. So I think that AI has tons of potential. I think that we don't know yet where the positives and negatives are going to be, and again, we get a vote.
Yeah, and also I think what you said earlier also, that AI has been around us a lot longer than many people have been aware of, also because we got these large language models and ChatGPT now. It's not that AI is something completely new. It's been around since I think the 50s or something, was probably the earliest AIs that at least I know about. So I think I think what's new is that it's now become so public and it's out there, and then how it's going to play out. I really liked your comparison to social media.
We'll see.
But it's very exciting, and I think there's also a lot of creative people who will do a lot of things that none of us can even think about, that maybe impact us greatly.
Just the last interesting thing, I noticed today an article about how AI had decoded the language of sperm whales. Just think about what that kind of thing means, that the expansion of how we think about parts of the human existence that you just wouldn't have thought that technology would help you with. My dog is sitting there and I'm waiting for dog translation, but the fact that whales, and I believe if that's true, that there's probably some other related species that it'll have some headway with. That's just a really interesting way of thinking about what doors might be opened.
And I'm thinking, I'm a little bit worried what my cat will say about me.
That's right.
Let's just say it's a very powerful tool, and it lies in our hands as to what we use it for, what we teach it, and what we learn from it, what we want to take away from it as well, right? So there is a sense of responsibility, also a small sense of fear that Maria has about her cat. But other than that, I think it's a wonderful place to be in today in terms of where we are in AI. But I'm really looking forward to the future for what it holds, for all of us in all the different industries, but really watching out for the construction space. So I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to both of you, and also to Piotr, who was unable to make it here today, but will be willing to share his answers to our discussion and our questions, which we will publish on our newsletter. So please watch out for the Tilco Advisors LinkedIn page and subscribe to the newsletter if you already have not. And you can hear about what the digital transformation, digital technology side of the contribution that it can do to the construction industry. And thank you very much. These have been some very valuable insights that our viewers and us, all of us, can take back with us. So thank you so much. And I really encourage all of you. Any questions, feel free to post them, and we will do our best to get you answers from the speakers. So thank you all. See you all in the next event, and watch out for this space. We are looking to do a series of such conversations. So before we leave, a last thank you to Hugh and Maria again. Thank you so much for being here today, taking time off your busy schedule. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank
you so much for having us. It was really fun.
Yep. Lovely conversation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Today, if you are a manufacturer of construction materials, your market presence can vary widely. In an environment that's competitive enough to push for quality and innovation, standing out is a significant challenge. Your products are your pride, but when it comes to their digital presentation during the delivery process, are you stuck choosing off-the-shelf solutions that barely scratch the surface of your needs? Are you settling for standard products that don't truly represent what you offer? Do you feel you're still far from integrating AI into your delivery processes? Well, be proactive in adopting innovative digital solutions. Tailor your strategies to meet the unique digital needs of your products. And ensure your data management practices are secure, compliant, and ready for AI integration. If your options aren't clear, don't hesitate to talk to us. Schedule your free consultation today and discover how you can dominate the market with cutting-edge